The city was loud, busy, and full of people rushing to their destinations. But for one young woman, Sarah, the noise around her did not matter. Her heart was heavy, her pockets were empty, and her mind was full of worries. Sarah had been looking for a job for months. Every morning she woke up with hope, dressed in her best clothes, and carried her old brown bag with a folder of documents. She would visit offices, shops, and companies, asking for work. But every time, the answer was the same: sorry, no vacancy. Sometimes they didn't even bother to listen. Other times, they just looked at her, shook their heads, and walked away. Day after day, rejection after rejection, Sarah's spirit was breaking. She was not lazy, she was not weak. She was ready to work hard, but nobody seemed to give her a chance. Her small rented room was another problem. The landlord had already warned her. If you don't pay this month, you will have to leave. She had only a few coins left, just enough for tea and a little bread. Nights were the hardest. When she closed her eyes, she could hear her stomach growling. Hunger was now her silent companion. On this particular evening, Sarah walked home slowly. The sun was setting, the sky turning orange and red, but she did not notice its beauty. Her feet were tired, her shoes old and worn out. People around her laughed, talked, carried shopping bags filled with food and clothes. She tried not to look, because every glance reminded her of what she did not have. She whispered to herself, "Just one chance. I only need one chance." Her eyes were wet, but she kept walking. As she turned into a quieter street, something unusual caught her attention. Right near the corner of the road, under a streetlight, there was a small black object lying on the ground. At first, she thought it was just a notebook or maybe some trash. But when she bent down and picked it up, her heart skipped a beat. It was a wallet. A black leather wallet, heavy and full. Her hands trembled as she held it. She looked around quickly. The street was empty. Nobody seemed to notice, nobody seemed to care. Sarah's fingers slowly opened the wallet. The first thing she saw was a thick bundle of cash. Her breath became fast. She had never seen this much money in her life. Her mind raced. This could pay my rent. This could buy me food. This could change everything. But there was more. She found credit cards, shiny and new. And then an identification card. She read the name once. Then again. Her eyes widened. It was the name of a man she had heard many times on the news. A millionaire businessman. A powerful man in the city. Sarah froze. She held the wallet close to her chest. Her heart was pounding so loudly, she thought someone else might hear it. She sat down on a nearby bench, staring at the wallet. In that moment, two voices battled inside her. One voice whispered, "Keep it. No one will know. With this money, you can pay everything. You can survive. Don't be a fool." The other voice whispered, "This is not yours. What if the man is searching for it? What if cameras saw you pick it up? What if this destroys you instead of saving you?" She closed her eyes, her mind in chaos. The city around her continued to move, but for Sarah, time had stopped. She felt like she was standing at a crossroad between two lives. One life of hunger and honesty. Another life of comfort but guilt. Her stomach growled again, reminding her of her hunger. Her hand tightened on the wallet. A small tear rolled down her cheek. She whispered softly, "Why me? Why now?" She looked up at the sky, where the first stars were appearing. And then she made a small promise to herself, "I will not let money change who I am." But deep inside, she knew this wallet was not just money. It was something bigger. Something dangerous. Something that could open doors, or close them forever. With slow steps, she stood up. She placed the wallet back in her bag. Her face was pale, but her eyes had a strange fire in them. She did not know it yet, but this small moment was the beginning of a journey that would test her honesty, her strength, and her destiny. Because sometimes, life does not give you a job. Life gives you a test. And for Sarah, that test had just begun. The night was cold, but Sarah could not feel the wind. Her mind was only on the wallet inside her bag. Every step she took home felt heavy. Her small room looked even emptier than usual when she entered. She placed the bag on her bed and sat quietly, staring at it. The room was silent, except for the ticking of a small clock on the wall. She slowly reached into the bag and pulled out the wallet again. Her hands shook as she opened it. The smell of leather filled the air, and once again, her eyes met the thick bundle of cash inside. She counted with trembling fingers. Hundreds, thousands, more than she had ever held in her entire life. For a moment, she could not breathe. Her heart was racing. She imagined how this money could solve all her problems. Rent, food, clothes, even a chance to study again. Her mind began to paint pictures. She saw herself walking into a shop, buying bread and milk without fear of the price. She saw herself paying the landlord with confidence, no shame in her eyes. She even imagined getting new shoes, because her old ones had holes in them. For a few seconds, she smiled. But then, her smile disappeared. Her eyes landed on the identification card again. She picked it up and read the name carefully, Mr. Ahmed Karim. Her heart jumped. She had seen that name many times on the news. He was a powerful businessman, one of the wealthiest men in the city. People respected him, but some also feared him. His companies were everywhere: real estate, hotels, factories. He was not just rich, he was important. Sarah bit her lip. This was not the wallet of an ordinary man. This was the wallet of someone whose life was far away from hers. Someone who probably did not even know that people like Sarah existed. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "If I keep this money, it is stealing. But if I return it, will he even believe me? What if they think I am lying? What if they blame me for something?" Her chest felt heavy. She placed the wallet on the table and stared at it as if it were alive. It felt like the wallet was talking to her, calling her to make a choice. She thought of her mother's words, long ago when life was kinder: "Sarah, no matter how poor we become, never let greed take your soul. Money comes and goes, but honesty stays forever." Her throat tightened as she remembered. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Sarah jumped. Her eyes darted to the wallet. She quickly covered it with her scarf and went to open the door. It was her landlord. His voice was sharp. "Tomorrow is the last day. If you don't pay the rent, you must leave." Sarah nodded silently. She did not argue. She closed the door and leaned against it, tears running down her cheeks. The landlord's words echoed in her mind. She had no money, no food, no hope. And yet, here in her room, lay a wallet filled with everything she needed. Her eyes returned to the wallet. She whispered, "Maybe this is a sign, maybe God sent this to me." But immediately another thought struck her, or maybe it is a test. The battle inside her heart grew stronger. She paced the room, holding her head. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, she stopped and looked at herself in the cracked mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes tired, but there was still a spark of strength in them. She said out loud, as if convincing herself, "No, I cannot steal. I cannot be like that. If I start with dishonesty, I will end with regret." She took a deep breath and picked up the wallet again. This time, she looked at the ID card carefully. The company address was printed there. A tall glass building in the center of the city. She had passed by it once but never dared to go inside. Her hands pressed the wallet close to her chest. She made her decision. She would return it. But the fear did not leave her heart. What if the millionaire thought she had taken some money before returning it? What if he accused her of being a thief? What if his guards pushed her away, laughed at her, and refused to believe her story? Sarah sat on her bed, holding the wallet, her thoughts storming like thunder. She whispered, "Tomorrow, tomorrow I will go. Whatever happens, I must do the right thing." Her stomach growled again. She had no dinner that night. She drank a glass of water and lay down, but sleep did not come easily. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the millionaire's name shining on the ID card. Every time she turned, she felt the weight of the wallet in her bag. The night felt endless. Finally, when the first light of dawn entered her window, Sarah stood up. She washed her face, put on her best clothes, and tied her hair neatly. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was firm. She picked up the wallet, held it tight, and whispered, "This is not mine. I will return it." And as she stepped out of her room, she had no idea that this single act of honesty would take her into a world of secrets, challenges, and tests she could never imagine. Morning arrived with a soft glow, but for Sarah, it felt heavy and uncertain. She stood in front of the cracked mirror in her room, adjusting her faded blouse and brushing her hair carefully. This was the only set of clothes she had that looked even a little formal. She wanted to appear respectful, not desperate. Her old brown bag hung on her shoulder, and inside it was the wallet, the same wallet that had stolen her peace of mind all night. She touched the bag gently, as if to remind herself that it was still there. Her stomach was empty, but she ignored the hunger. Today, she had only one mission. The streets were busy as usual. Cars honked, vendors shouted, people hurried. Sarah walked among them, holding the bag tightly. Every step toward the Millionaire's company building made her heart beat faster. She had never entered such places before. She was a girl of small shops and crowded markets, not glass towers and polished floors. Finally, after a long walk, she stood in front of the building. It was tall, made of shining glass, reflecting the morning sun. Businessmen and women entered through the large doors, all dressed in expensive suits. Sarah hesitated at the gate. She felt out of place, like a stranger in another world. 2 security guards stood at the entrance. Their sharp eyes scanned everyone who entered. Sarah's feet froze. What if they refused to let her in? What if they laughed at her for even trying? She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said softly to the guard. "I need to meet Mr. Ahmed Karim. I found something that belongs to him." The guard frowned, looking her up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" Sarah shook her head nervously. "No, but it's very important. Please, I must return this to him." She carefully pulled the wallet halfway out of her bag, just enough for the guard to see the black leather. The guard's eyes widened slightly. He exchanged a quick glance with his partner. For a moment, Sarah thought they would take the wallet and send her away. But instead, one of them spoke into his radio, then said, "Wait here." Minutes passed slowly. Sarah's heart was racing. People stared at her as they walked by. She felt small, invisible, yet exposed at the same time. Finally, the guard nodded. "Come with me." They led her through the large glass doors into the lobby. The floor was shining like a mirror, the air smelled of expensive perfume, and the sound of high heels clicked on the tiles. Sarah had never seen such a place before. She felt like she was walking inside a dream, one that did not belong to her. The guards escorted her to an elevator. Her palms were sweaty as the doors closed. She whispered to herself, "Stay calm, Sarah. Just be honest." When the elevator opened, she was guided into a large office. The room was filled with bookshelves, paintings, and a wide desk. Behind the desk sat the man she had only seen in newspapers and on TV, Mr. Ahmed Karim, the millionaire. He looked older than in the pictures, his hair touched with grey, his suit perfectly tailored. But his eyes were sharp, the kind that noticed everything. Sarah stood at the door, her knees weak. She wanted to run, but she forced herself to stay. One of the guards spoke. "Sir, she says she found this." He gestured to Sarah. With trembling hands, Sarah stepped forward and placed the wallet on the desk. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I found this on the street, yesterday. It belongs to you, sir." The room fell silent. The millionaire picked up the wallet, opened it, and checked inside. His expression did not change. He looked at her calmly, then asked a question that pierced her heart. "Why didn't you keep it?" Sarah swallowed hard. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She lowered her eyes, then finally said softly, "Because it's not mine. I may be poor, but my dignity is worth more than money." For a moment, silence filled the room again. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, studying her face. His eyes narrowed, as if he were testing her soul. Then, to her surprise, a small smile appeared on his lips. "You could have disappeared with this wallet," he said. "Nobody would have known. Yet you are here. That is interesting." Sarah said nothing. Her hands were shaking. She thought he would simply thank her and ask her to leave. But instead, his voice grew deeper, more serious. "Do you believe honesty has power, young lady?" he asked. Sarah hesitated. Then she nodded. "Yes. Honesty may not give food, but it gives peace." The millionaire stared at her for a long moment. Then, suddenly, he closed the wallet, placed it on the table, and leaned forward. "If you really believe in honesty, then prove it to me." Sarah's eyes widened. "Prove it? How?" But the man did not answer immediately. He leaned back in his chair, his smile mysterious, his eyes sharp like a hawk. At that moment, Sarah realized something. Returning the wallet was not the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. Sarah stood frozen in front of the millionaire. Her hands trembled, her breath shallow. She had expected a thank you, maybe a handshake, and then to be sent away. But instead, his words echoed in her ears. "If you really believe in honesty, then prove it to me." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, I don't understand. What do you mean?" Mr. Ahmed leaned back in his chair, his face calm but unreadable. He tapped his fingers lightly on the desk. "Anyone can say they are honest when they have nothing. But true honesty is shown when you are given something to protect, something tempting. Do you agree?" Sarah hesitated. She felt her throat tighten. "Yes. I think so," she whispered. "Good," Ahmed said firmly. "Then here is my offer. Work for me. For 1 week only. A small test. Show me if your honesty is real, or just words." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Work. For a millionaire. It sounded impossible. She was nobody, just a poor girl struggling to survive. "But, sir, I have no experience. I don't know anything about offices." Ahmed's lips curved slightly. "Experience can be taught. Character cannot. That is what I want to see." Her mind raced. This could be her chance. The chance she had been praying for. But what if it was a trap? What if this man was testing her in ways she could not imagine? Still, she nodded slowly. "I will try, sir." The millionaire pressed a button on his desk phone. A few seconds later, a young woman entered the office, tall, confident, dressed in a sharp suit. Ahmed gestured toward her. "This is Nadia, my assistant. From today, you will work under her guidance. Do what she says. At the end of the week, I will decide." Sarah nodded nervously. Nadia looked at her from head to toe, her eyes sharp and cold. There was no warmth in her gaze, only suspicion. "Follow me," Nadia said flatly. Sarah gave one last glance at the millionaire, who simply watched her with quiet curiosity, then followed Nadia out of the office. The next days were unlike anything Sarah had ever known. She was given a desk in a corner of the office, a pile of papers, and endless instructions. She had to answer phones, deliver documents, and organize files. For someone who had never worked in a company before, it felt overwhelming. Her hands fumbled with the computer keyboard, her eyes burned from reading tiny letters on the papers, and sometimes she spilled tea when serving it to the staff. Nadia's sharp voice was always behind her. "You're too slow. Careful. Don't drop that file. Do it again." Every mistake felt heavy. Every task felt like walking on glass. But Sarah did not give up. She stayed late in the office, rechecking files, learning quietly from others, practicing until her fingers hurt. At night, when she returned to her empty room, she was exhausted. Her feet ached, her back hurt, but inside her chest was a small spark of hope. For the first time in months, she was working. For the first time, she felt she had a chance. But soon, strange things began to happen. One morning, Nadia accused her. "Where is the Johnson file? I gave it to you yesterday." Sarah's eyes widened. "I placed it on your desk, I promise." But the file was gone. Vanished. Nadia's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Sarah. One mistake can cost you everything." Sarah felt her heart sink. She knew she had placed the file correctly, but there was no proof. She kept quiet, her lips pressed tightly. The next day, another problem appeared. A delivery of important documents was delayed, and somehow her name was written as the responsible person. But Sarah had never even seen those papers before. Whispers spread among the staff. Some gave her suspicious looks. Others shook their heads. Sarah felt like the walls were closing in. Why is this happening? Why are things going wrong only for me? She thought. But instead of breaking down, she worked harder. She double-checked everything, wrote notes for herself, and stayed later than everyone else. She wanted to prove she was not careless, not dishonest. Still, her chest carried a growing weight. At times, she wondered if she should just leave. But then she remembered the millionaire's eyes when he had asked her to prove her honesty. She remembered her mother's voice. She could not quit. Not now. On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. Sarah was cleaning her desk when she found the missing Johnson file, hidden inside the drawer of a cabinet near her desk. Her eyes widened in shock. She remembered clearly that she had never placed it there. Someone else must have hidden it. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. She wanted to scream that she was innocent, that she had been blamed wrongly. But a voice inside whispered, "Be careful. If you accuse someone without proof, they will call you a liar." So she stayed silent, placing the file neatly back on Nadia's desk. Later that day, she overheard 2 staff members whispering near the hallway. One said softly, "It's a shame. Nadia doesn't want that poor girl here. She's trying to push her out." Sarah's heart sank. Now it made sense. The missing files, the false blame, it was all planned. Nadia was testing her, or maybe trying to break her spirit. But why? Was this part of the millionaire's test? Or was Nadia simply jealous? Sarah did not know. All she knew was that her honesty was being tested in ways she had never imagined. And deep down, she feared this was only the beginning. The week was nearly over, and Sarah's body felt heavier each day. Her hands were tired, her eyes burned from long hours, but her heart refused to give up. She had promised herself she would not quit, no matter how difficult things became. But the shadows around her kept growing. Every day something went wrong, and somehow her name was always tied to it. Missing files, wrong deliveries, broken trust, everything pointed at her, even though she knew she was innocent. It was as if the office itself was trying to push her out. And Nadia, the assistant, stood at the center of it all. Her sharp eyes followed Sarah everywhere. Her cold voice cut through the room whenever Sarah made even the smallest mistake. "You don't belong here," Nadia whispered one evening when no one else was around. "This is not your world. Go back to where you came from." The words stabbed Sarah's heart, but she stayed silent. She held her tears back, reminding herself that this was a test. She could not fail. On the 6th day, the tension reached its peak. An important meeting was scheduled with foreign investors. Nadia handed Sarah a folder with financial documents and said firmly, "Take this directly to the conference room. Do not open it. Do not lose it." Sarah nodded carefully, holding the folder as if it were gold. She walked slowly through the long hallway toward the conference room. Every step echoed in her ears. But when she reached the room and handed the folder to the staff inside, something strange happened. The documents were wrong. Instead of financial reports, the folder contained blank sheets of paper. The room filled with murmurs. One man frowned. Another whispered in confusion. Then all eyes turned to Sarah. Her heart dropped. She felt the ground slip away beneath her feet. A staff member asked sharply, "Where did you get this?" Sarah stammered, From Nadia, sir. She gave it to me." The man shook his head. Unbelievable. Such carelessness. Sarah wanted to scream, "It's not my fault. I didn't open the folder, I swear." But her voice was trapped in her throat. She felt small, helpless, and ashamed. She left the room quietly, her head bowed. Nadia was waiting outside, her arms crossed, a faint smile on her lips. "Careless girl," Nadia said coldly. "This was your last chance." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. She wanted to shout the truth, to fight for herself. But she knew it would be useless. Nobody would believe her over Nadia. That evening, she returned to her small room. The air felt heavy. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her empty walls. Her bag lay beside her, the same bag where she had once kept the millionaire's wallet. She thought about how much had changed since that day. She had dreamed that returning the wallet would bring her a new beginning, a better life. But now it felt like she was drowning even deeper. Her chest ached. For the first time, she whispered, "Maybe Nadia is right. Maybe I don't belong in that world." But then she remembered Ahmed's eyes when he had given her the chance. He had not looked at her with pity. He had looked at her with curiosity, as if he was searching for something. What if this was all still part of his test? What if he wanted to see if she could remain strong even when people tried to crush her? She wiped her tears and whispered to herself, "I will not break. I will not give up." The next morning, something unexpected happened. Sarah was called to the top floor of the building, the millionaire's office. She walked nervously, her heart beating fast. The guards opened the door, and she stepped inside. Ahmed was sitting at his desk, calm as always. His eyes studied her carefully as she stood before him. "I heard about yesterday," he said slowly. "The wrong documents." Sarah's lips trembled. She wanted to explain, to defend herself. But before she could speak, Ahmed raised his hand. "Do not explain yet," he said firmly. "I want to know something first. Why are you still here? After all the mistakes, after all the blame, why have you not walked away?" Sarah looked down for a moment, then lifted her eyes with quiet strength. "Because, sir, I came here with honesty. If I leave in silence, it will look like I was guilty. And I am not guilty. I may be poor, but I still have my truth. I want to leave with my head held high." For a long moment, Ahmed said nothing. His eyes softened, and for the first time, there was warmth in his expression. Then he leaned forward and spoke words that shook her heart. "Sarah, the truth is, everything that happened in this office was not an accident. The missing files, the wrong documents, even Nadia's treatment of you. All of it was a test." Sarah's breath caught. She stared at him, unable to believe her ears. A test. Her mind spun. Was Nadia part of it? Had every hardship been planned? Ahmed's voice was calm, but powerful. "I wanted to see if you would bend under pressure. If you would lie to save yourself. If you would betray your honesty. And now, I have my answer." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Relief, shock, and confusion mixed together inside her. She could barely find words. Her heart whispered, "So, this was never about mistakes. This was about me." Sarah stood in silence, her heart beating so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The millionaire's words kept echoing. All of it was a test. She struggled to breathe. 4 days, she had been blamed, humiliated, and crushed under suspicion. And now, suddenly, she was told it was all planned? Her lips trembled. A test," she whispered, her voice breaking. Ahmed Karim nodded slowly. His eyes were calm, almost kind now. "Yes. When you brought me back the wallet, I was impressed. But one honest act does not always show true character. Many people can return money once and still fall into greed later. I needed to know who you really are. If your honesty was only words, or if it was part of your soul." Sarah's knees felt weak. She held on to the edge of a chair to keep from falling. "So, the missing files, the false blame. Nadia." "Yes," Ahmed said firmly. "Nadia works for me. She followed my instructions. Every problem you faced was part of the test." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The pain of those days came rushing back, the cold stares, the cruel whispers, the feeling of being unwanted. All of it had been designed to see if she would break. Her voice cracked. "But sir, do you know what it felt like? To be treated like dirt? To be blamed for things I never did? To cry alone at night, thinking I was a failure?" Ahmed's expression softened. For the first time, the powerful millionaire looked almost guilty. "I know it was cruel. But life, Sarah, is even more cruel. If you had bent under pressure here, how would you survive out there? I needed to see your strength." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked at him with trembling lips. "And did I pass your test?" There was silence in the room. Ahmed leaned back, studying her face carefully. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Yes. You passed. Not just passed, You proved yourself stronger than I expected. Sarah's heart stopped for a moment. She covered her mouth with her hand, holding back sobs. A strange mixture of pain and relief filled her chest. Ahmed stood and walked around his desk. His voice carried weight, but also respect. From today, you are no longer a temporary worker. I want you to join my company permanently. Not as a servant of papers, but as someone I can trust. Someone who understands the value of honesty. Sarah's eyes widened. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Just days ago, she had been begging for a job anywhere, even to wash floors. And now, a millionaire was offering her a place by his side. Her voice shook. But sir, why me? There are so many people more skilled, more educated. Ahmed shook his head. Skills can be taught. Degrees can be earned. But integrity, that cannot be bought. I have enough clever people in my company. What I need are people I can trust with closed eyes. And you, Sarah, you proved that to me. Her tears finally fell freely. She bent her head, whispering, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for believing in me." Ahmed placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "No, Sarah. Thank you. You reminded me that honesty still exists in this world." The days that followed felt like a dream for Sarah. She was given a proper desk, real responsibilities, and respect from the staff. Even Nadia's sharp eyes softened, and one day she quietly said, "You're stronger than I thought." Sarah smiled politely. She held no anger in her heart. She understood now, Nadia had only been a tool in the test. Her small rented room no longer felt like a prison. With her new job, she could finally pay her rent, buy food, and live with dignity. One evening, she stood by the window with bread and tea in her hands, whispering to herself, "I returned a wallet, and in return, life gave me back my hope." Weeks later, Ahmed invited her to his office again. He looked at her with a rare softness in his eyes. "Sarah," he said, "do you know why I left my wallet on the street that day?" She shook her head. He smiled faintly. "I wanted to test humanity. Too many times, I've lost faith in people. I wanted to see if honesty still exists. Many have picked up my wallet before. Not one of them returned it. You are the first." Sarah's breath caught. She remembered that evening clearly, the hunger, the temptation, the voices inside her head. If she had chosen differently, her life would have ended in darkness. Ahmed continued, his voice deep. "That's why I trust you now. You didn't just return money. You gave me back my faith." Sarah could not stop her tears. She whispered, "Sir, I only wanted a job. I never imagined this." Ahmed smiled warmly. "Sometimes life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you deserve." And so, the girl who once had nothing but hunger and hopelessness found herself in a place of respect and dignity, not because of luck, not because of wealth, but because of a single choice. The choice to be honest when it mattered most. As she left the office that day, her head held high, she felt the weight of her past falling away. She walked through the shining glass doors into the sunlight, her eyes bright with tears, her heart full of hope.